Hello, everyone. Good afternoon. Hope you all are doing well. Thank you for joining us today on Future of Digital Risk Management for Financial Institution. Before we get into the session, a few housekeeping instructions. Yeah. So the session will last for about 60 minutes with a Q&A session towards the end of discussion. All attendees will be on listen-only mode for the smooth process of the event. Please feel free to drop your questions in your chat window so that we can take up and answer as much as we can towards the end of session. Next, we move on to agenda. We'll have introductions followed by panel discussion and the Q&A session towards the end with concluding remarks. Moving on to the introductions. Yeah, let me introduce myself before I introduce the moderator and panelist. My name is Chitti Babu. I work as key account manager for SISA at Singapore. Based out of SISA Singapore office, I take care of the sales and business development for Singapore clients and few global accounts based in the region. Has been working with the clients in the region from past 7 years, helping them with solutions in cybersecurity and IT infrastructure space. Yeah. Moving on to our moderator today, we have Darshan Santamurthy, founder and CEO of SISA. He has been in industry for 20 years, especially in payment security and cyber security space. He was working extensively with CXOs of many businesses, helping them with improving their strategy of information security posture. He was also a first payment PSA in Asia, and he has been a payment forensic investigator as well, and many additional security certifications to his credit. Welcome, Darshan. Yeah. Moving on to our panelist, let me introduce our esteemed panelist. We have Mr. Ramu, Group C2 at Tonic Bank, which is the first neobank in Philippines. In fact, the first fully digital bank in Southeast Asia. Ramu had a very key role in setting up this bank from the scratch, managing of cloud technology, operations, security divisions for the bank, with a career spanning over 18 years, working in areas like IT operations, enterprise architecture, IT security in both digital and banking and televerticals. We feel with his rich experience, the insights he will give will add to the discussion, and attendees will get useful insights from the panel discussion today. Welcome, Ram. Yeah, moving on. We have Mr. Shivakumar, Chief Risk Officer of Southeast Asia at Visa Singapore. He is an industry veteran with 24 years of experience in banking sector, various roles all over his career. In his current role, he executes comprehensive risk strategies based on the local market landscape and global risk strategies. Before this role, Shiva has spent a good amount of 12 years with HDFC as a VP in risk and compliance areas. So we feel that his views and his insights will help the attendees to get good insights on risk, fraud and risk management from the session. Welcome, Shiva. Yeah. Moving on. At this point of time, I'll hand over it to Darshan to start the discussion and more.
Thanks, Chitti, and thanks, Chitti. I hope you are able to hear me, right? All right, perfect. So thanks, Shiva and Ramu, for taking time for this webinar. Glad to have the opportunity of moderating this session. And just to set the context and make this the next 1 hour as engaging and as interactive as possible. Why did we pick this topic? Especially the digital, the financial world has actually going through an intense amount of disruption. We have seen neobanks such as Tonic Bank come in, and there are lots of other banks we all know are aware that the traditional form of banking is getting disrupted, and the financial sector, obviously, thanks to the COVID, the digital sector, digital payment sector has kind of the digital banking has actually increased exponentially. So this topic is of one that we've been getting constant feedback in terms of how the industry is perceiving. So we thought that we'll get some perspective on this topic and who better than getting Shiva and Ramu on this, who bring in two different perspectives, one from a network standpoint, and the other from a neobank standpoint. So just to give some context, 3/4 of banks and insurers in Asia experienced rise in cybercrime since the pandemic began. So that kind of shows the kind of digital risks that has grown in exponentially. While the growth has happened in terms of in terms of the digital transactions, especially in the financial sector, consequently the kind of cybercrime that we are also witnessing has grown exponentially. 56% of the financial institutions have seen rise in financial losses associated to fraud or cybercrime in the last 12 months. And then Asia Pacific as a region itself has accounted for almost about 25% of all attacks observed by one of the leading threat intelligence organizations. And then, of course, financial insurance, if you were to take the Indian perspective alone, has seen almost about 60% of organizations being under some form of attack. So with that kind of statistics, we thought this topic would be relevant, and we could help the community and the ecosystem get a different perspective on what they should be doing, what are organizations doing in order to defend themselves. We were to go on to the next slide. So what kind of risks are we seeing associated with the digital transformation in financial sectors? So there are basically four broad risks that are coming through. One is the operational risk, which is change in control environment. Gone are the days where the data centers were, in an office at the end of the day, in something under a physical control of the IT folks. Now it has got evaporated into the cloud, literally, and many organizations have also have lots of people accessing this cloud environment from work from home, and we also had third parties at the end of the day getting extensive access. And then of course business continuity management has become a challenge, and we all went through and we had a real test of our business continuity management when we had many organizations had to invoke their BCM, or what we call as BCP and DR, when thanks to when the COVID kind of pandemic hit us. Then we've got technology risks, which is largely in terms of governance, technology assets management, with shadow assets, shadow IT, organizations leveraging software as a service, and workloads moving onto the cloud, and data in being spread across multiple environments, both on endpoints, cloud, work from home, mobile. Technology risk has grown exponentially. Regulators, obviously, because of the kind of cybercrime that they are seeing, are extremely concerned. I was trying to map all the cybersecurity guidelines that has been issued by many central banks in Asia, and literally there's no bank who's not kind of expressed some kind of a guideline or some kind of a mandate with respect to kind of being concerned about the kind of risks that organizations are carrying. So regulatory mandates, regulatory requirements are coming in, and many of them have short windows. So compliance is becoming a very big area of activity that organizations are trying to adhere to. And then of course misconduct, insider threats have quadrupled. Gone are the days where you could actually have remote working only during and then monitor each of them, because now literally 95% of the workforce, even in many of the like a country like India, is still working from home. So that has actually quadrupled, and organizations are kind of faced, and especially the financial sector, considering the fact of sensitive data being handled, are all trying to manage it from home. So with that context, I'll set the stage for this panel and do the interaction. And then one thing that I would request all the participants is, we want to keep this panel and this the session as interactive as possible. So while I know Chiti mentioned that you can hold your questions till the end, but feel free to shoot those questions in the chat window, like the way Chiti explained in the housekeeping session, and we will try to kind of take questions from there, and then I'll mix it up with the question that I have for for both Shiva as well as Ramu. If that's okay. So I think with that, Shiva, Ramu, you want to make any opening comments, and then I'll probably start, asking, some of the questions. Ramu, Shiva, Ramu, you want to go first?
I think perfectly a stage has been set, Darshan, how the current risk function operates and where we want to lead. That's the kind of thing we are going to debate next couple of probably next 45 minutes to an hour to see two different perspectives from Visa and and a digital bank like us born in the cloud. So let's get started.
Thanks, Shri and Darshan for the kind introduction, and Darshan to set the stage. So you can go ahead and shoot the question. So I'll try to answer the best of my abilities.
Thanks.
Sure. Yeah.
We'll have a quick poll before we proceed to the discussion.
Sure, Ramu. Sure, Chiti, go ahead. Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah. Ashwini, can have the poll question. Yeah. The question is, what is your biggest workforce cyber risk? The attendees can choose one of the options. We have cloud-based security challenge, technology-based knowledge gaps, data and privacy requirements, all of the above. Yeah. We'll have 30 seconds for the attendees to respond. Yeah. We have the results here. Darshan, would you want to make any comment on this?
No, I think it's it kind of reflects what all of us are thinking, which is if you see, I think all of them actually are key concern areas, and then if you see data and privacy is one thing that is also coming through. So I think it kind of reflects, and I subscribe to this view as well. So
yeah, and 55% feel that all of the above are challenges. Yeah, we'll move on with the panel discussion.
Right. Thanks, Chiti.
Yeah.
So Ramu, the first question I would start with you in terms of so given the near future of customers' expectations, especially in the banking services, with so much of disruption happening, and in so much of technology being used. I mean, you represent the newer bank, especially the being completely digital bank, so to be called, and new business models are emerging. How do you see the risk function looking like, for financial institutions going forward? How do you perceive risk? You as a bank, how do you foresee, especially being a digital bank?
Yeah, I think that's a fantastic question to start with, Darshan. So let me put it. Tonic is a little different than the banks. When you say digital bank, it's not a lipstick on big mouth. It's really built on multi-cloud strategy and completely virtual. And then a glimpse of the complexity, if I want to talk about here, it's spin across 3 secure public cloud over 8 different countries and 2 different hybrid cloud. The solution 62 plus solutions are running across different technology, and 80% technologies are linked to AML, artificial intelligence and machine learning is attached to it. With this context, today the technology driving the bank, instead of a business driven, it is becoming a technology driven. A few minutes back you talked about a risk function, because we are highly regulated and process driven with high penalty attached to any non-compliance, which talks about either an operational risk or a commercial risk or reputational risk or technical risk, which you rightly mentioned. But if you put this today, most of the things are, including InfoSec and TRM, managed outside the IT. Within Tonic, what is the new modern IT we want to bring it in? bring the TRM capability under a CTO office, number one. The reason I will going to talk about it. The number one is when you say the modern banks and modern fintechs are getting built through artificial intelligence and machine learning driven technology risk management in a multi-cloud environment, which driven the cloud security, endpoint security, remote workforce enablement with the secure access, which are driving little higher technology knowledge along with the processing, the traditional process require a change which can adopt modern technology and the process re-engineering. So the organization like us today moving towards zero trust security operation adaptation, which include situational awareness, information sharing, threat intelligence exchange, and the security orchestration with the automation and response, which we call it as SOAR. This all different component of technical risk management. It's evolving across different countries. If you look at either Singapore, Philippines, Malaysia, but TRM today, technical risk management, today still it is evolving. We're trying to cope up with modern technology of cloud or data, artificial intelligence, machine learning. With especially the customer centric banks like us, we're talking about agility, speed, giving the control back to customer, which means it's all about automated eKYC, automated account opening, immediate card issuance, which include a lot of risk and fraud prevention need to be, those technology need to be brought in. This all today not much regulated, which regulators are working towards to improving the TRM. That is what you can see almost every year now. Most of our Southeast Asian countries are opening addendum under TRMs because everybody, regulator, bank and technology companies, everybody we are learning through that phase. So I'm looking at 2025 is the complete TRM and InfoSec will be very highly automated technology function enabled, not just a process and compliance. It is more than a technology driven, highly modernized capability. And over to you back, Sushan. We have a lot of things to talk about under those each area, risk area and innovations, how and fraud and RPA and smart securities. But it is driving through a modern technology adaptation and change in regulation.
Sure, Shiva, your perspective, because you've seen both sides, the new emerging digital banks who are disrupting, as well as the old, traditional banks who've been growing their risk function. So you can bring in both the context.
I wish I had a time machine capsule to go to 2025 and answer this question, but I'll try to answer as much as possible. See that the pace of change which is happening now, that's only reducing, right? When I started risk management as a career banker way back in 1995, risk management is a silo, function-based, manual processes in place, right? That's how risk management started. Right? That worked well at that point of time. Will the same thing work now? The answer is no. Let's be honest about it. So not only the business models have emerged, but the threat landscape has also emerged over the years. The technology advancements have emerged, the threat landscape has emerged and evolved. So one of the critical aspects when it comes to risk management function, or when it comes to a risk manager per se, is to anticipate the future. That's one of the critical aspects of risk management. Today, it means a digital future. Probably in the erstwhile payments world, the scaling was one of the things, right? Business scales at a much faster pace. So how do we manage security at a larger scale? That used to be a worry for a risk manager. But today, it's a digital future. when most of the industries are trying to get on the digital transformation journey. You take any industry, even a pharma, an auto, everybody is trying to get into a digital transformation journey. But when it comes to payments, the world where I am part of as a network from a Visa's point of view, we're already there. We've already progressed well in a digital transformation journey. It's not like we just started. We are probably way ahead than other industries in a digital transformation journey. So, as I said, right, in the erstwhile payments world, threat landscape used to be more physical in nature. A guy used to lose a card, or the counterfeit can happen at a manual merchant shop. That landscape has completely changed now. It's become more of technology-oriented frauds. People are able to identify vulnerabilities in a processing environment, or they are able to intrude into a network and get hold of critical data and try to misuse the same. So the threat landscape has changed drastically, and so it means the risk management professionals also need to change and adopt technology-oriented solutions to address some of these technology-oriented frauds. Banks are evolved. Banks are investing in the right technology. I'm not saying they're not. They are investing in technology. They are bringing in expertise, be it information security or a CISO in place. In most of the countries, for that matter, regulators have mandated CISOs have to be in banks taking care of information security. Right? This was not the case probably 10 years back. Most of the regulators are today mandated saying an information security officer is required because they've realized saying the threats are more and more towards information security. One other aspect is the consumer experience, which I want to bring in when it comes to risk management space. Right? Today we are at the cusp of what I call as the revolution in the payment space, which is defined by artificial intelligence or quantum computing or machine learning or Internet of Things, you name whatever it is. Today we are at the cusp of that, where it transforms the payment experience for the consumers. And data will fuel this payment technology revolution. That's what I feel. This technology enhances the payment experience, right? Today, it's no longer people talk about payment as a separate transaction. It's an experience by itself. You just walk into a taxi, get out of the taxi, but payment happens by itself. It's not like you need to pull out your wallet, give it, transact with someone. It's becoming an experience. So is the attack landscape also, right? People are trying to target some of the vulnerabilities in the processing environment. Need not be in the banking environment. It can be even a processing environment involving a merchant. It can be a processor who's supporting some of these infrastructure. So it's taking a shape. It's when it's used correctly and ethically, it creates innovation. But if the same thing a group lays hands to hold of the data, that's where the fraud or the threat landscape comes into place. Right? So one of the important developments which I've seen over these years is it's become a topic at a board level. People have realized saying investment in information security or in investment in a risk management capability or security management capability has become a board level discussion, which is a very positive sign, which I think you talked about 2025, right? What I wish and hope in 2025 is people realizing the importance of having all three of them together. When I mean three, I always insist on saying it's a combination of a people, process, and technology coming into play. Right today, there is an environment. We have people, but not technology to support to manage some of these threats. Or on the other side, we have invested in technology, but there is no process of people to take care of that. Probably the technology will help only in the combination of having the people, a process to support that, and technology supporting the process. So by 2025, I'll see this synergy of all three coming together, where the organization is able to address some of these threats and also take into account this threat is not a function specific or a product specific threat. Right? Today, threats are across a same malware or a same ransomware can stop the payments, can also stop or can also attack other form of banking. It can be like a SWIFT transfer. It can be even corporate banking environment. We don't know. So how all this coming together is a journey, and I think we have just started the journey. And when you talk about 2025, I think we'll be in a better place of people bringing in the synergy and trying to address the threat with the combination of people, process, and technology.
Thanks, Shiva. We got one interesting question from the audience here. Thank you, Shagun, for asking that question. So the question here is how technology automation, I'm sure this question, as I read it, looks like Ramu covered it a little, and maybe even Shiva. But nevertheless, I'll just make sure that we answer this question. So how technology automation will transform risk and compliance in the next 5 years, and what are those areas where automation will make massive transformation? I think the latter part, if you want to call out, Ramu, if you were to pick maybe 1 or 2 areas where you feel that massive areas of transformation, if you can identify, I think that will help.
The future is all about automated processes. Rightly, mentioned by Shiva, people, process, and the technology. These 3 all need to work together. If you ask me, in the modern organization, security is everyone's business, not just CRO or CSO at their department responsibility. No. So you start looking at in even the current way of building my current organization. So the automation is one of the key principle which is injected in the vision level. So looking at every function. It can be a sales, it can be operation, it can be a compliance, it can be a risk function, or even product function. It's automation integrated well. For example, today we are talking about automated eKYC on onboarding. The technology probably we might be bringing in customer liveliness test. If you look at, I'm on the phone, checking this is a real human or artificial human. Today there are bots. You can create a number of accounts if you are a smart person to do account hijacking or creating becoming a anti-money laundering. If you're smart enough, you can create a multiple account in a bank. Nobody can find it out. But you need a technology today, which is artificial intelligence based, identifying what kind of person. If you say you are a Filipino, your name is like this. Your face attributes are it's linked to Filipino. Number 1. Are you a real human? So there are 2 ways. Artificial intelligence linked. I'm talking about our risk function. How to do anti-fraud control. About checking whether you are nodding, blinking, or shaking. This is pretty old, 5-10 years old technology. Modern, there's something called 3D liveliness, which means based on your zoom in, zoom out, automatically the movement and angles of your eyes and face and nose are getting calculated, and you can detect whether this person is real human. Now, this real human, there is accuracy. So still you need to bring this decision to a compliance. If the particular person, the system stops, no, this person I'm thinking is fraud, you need to kick him out of onboarding. You need to pass him, you check the threshold, whether his trust score is a medium, still you allow him to move further in the onboarding process. But QA2, immediate QA2, your anti-fraud team to have a quick look at it. That means the process flow built such a way, the alerts are appear in the review portal of onboarding, where anti-fraud team can look at it. This alert, this particular customer trying to onboard. Look at immediately the picture and video which is captured by the onboarding system in the real time. Look at, yes, I can approve, or I can push him out of the onboarding. This is one. Or you can push them back into CDD for a customer due diligence officer can review later, which you can have a SLA of 1 to 3 days. But it is a real-time alert can given to anti-fraud team, which means you are integrating both risk and compliance, starting from onboarding. This is one of the best example. Similarly, moving to a payment and card. Today we are much advanced mode we are talking about. For example, if Ramu is usually try to do a transaction between 4 p.m. to 6 p.m., suddenly you are seeing he's doing cash out in 11 p.m. in the night in more than 5 transactions over 30 minutes. You can able to immediately flag it up, do a not just alert, whether you can temporarily lock the account and do an automatic call out and give a notification to a both anti-fraud team and compliance team. About one is about AML, another one is about anti-fraud. So this require the automatic pattern where artificial intelligence based system we can keep learning my behavior. Second, that is integrated with the process of transactions. Then that has been integrated to a today, which Shiva said most of the banks today it's a manual review panel. I dump the data end of day or 3 days later. They will go through all the payment fraud and do the postmortem. And because regulator allow you have to come, you have to come to me after 5 days. That is still okay. So this is how proactively you can alert, proactively you can bring this fraud capability in the advance of modern technology. You flag it out to the real time, more real time or near real time to the respective risk function to handle modern way of compliance and risk function more easy with the advancements of technology, which only feasible by through re-engineering the current process to meet the compliance and modern technology infrastructure. This is purely proactive monitoring and feeding those even into machine learning based system, which can take the decision whether grant or block and provide access to the systems and APIs. This all need integration with the automated RPA. Yep.
Thanks, Ramu. Shiva, more in terms of if you were to pick 3 areas or 2 areas where you feel automation is going to play a massive, just to make sure that we answer that question, where automation will make massive transformation. If you were to pick 3 areas, what those 3 areas will be? I mean, you over the last 2 decades you've seen this span out, and how do you foresee that the next 5 years?
See, there are since you said 3 areas, probably first I'll pick up the existing thing where most of the banks have a detection or a prevention capability, which is running, which is predominantly a rule-based systems, which they identify a trend and try to apply. If the similar trend comes, probably flags off. There might be false positives, but they have processes in place to identify false positives and probably block the response. So that's a current process. I think the machine learning or the artificial intelligence process, which Ram was talking about, will play a vital role in moving from a rule-based to a machine learning technology, which will enable a score-based approach to it. Because, as we said, the commerce is becoming more and more digital. It's extremely difficult to manage a rule-based platform. Because as the business scales, you cannot scale your team to address the threats, right? So how do we build in machine learning stuff to score consumer behavior and identify anomalies? I think that's predominantly people are investing today, because that's what is required. You can't rely on a manual member to take that call. It's extremely impossible in a scaling business. It will work up to a particular scale. It will not work for eternity. I think that's one area where we will see people moving into machine learning or artificial intelligence based solutions for both prevention and detection technologies. The second aspect which we see more is more and more transactions are moving into e-commerce, right, where transactions happen without a customer or a merchant, where we talk about in the 4-party model. 2 of them are not both physically present. It's all happening on the virtual mode. how do we enable an environment where people take decisions both from a fraud and also from a authentication point of view? Today, it's easier to say no authentication or I'll authenticate 100% of transactions. How do I bring in an element of a risk-based authentication? How can I enable a protocol which enables a risk-based authentication approach? How can I push information from a merchant domain and from a consumer domain to a person who is authorizing, which is an issuer domain, right? In a payments environment. Just to give you an example, I'm quoting this. How can I push as much information from a merchant profile and from a consumer, what kind of device he uses? Ramu gave an example of I used to withdraw cash at 4 to 6 p.m. every time suddenly the alarm. That's a customer profile information. How can I make this information available in real time for an entity who's taking a decision in real time? I think that's where that's where standards come into play. That's how the EME TDS protocol works. Just to give you an example, in a payments environment, that protocol enables information flowing in from a merchant and the customer domain to an issuer domain to take a risk-based authentication call. I think that we will see more happening. Third aspect is from a cyber security point of view, right? How do I keep my network secure? What kind of technology can I implement in my environment which is automated in nature? Because it's extremely impossible to monitor all the logs of all the systems on a daily basis. It has to be in real time. How can I bring in technology advancements in that space? How do we share information of some of the IPs, which today Visa does, right? We know some of the IPs which are interacting with the malicious command and control server. We try to share it with our clients. How can they make use of this information into their environment so that moment they see traffic from those IPs, how can I block it proactively rather than waiting for somebody to monitor the log and then identify somebody as intruder and then try to put in controls in place? Can I build in a system which can monitor this traffic in real time? And moment I know it's from a malicious IP or this is not a traffic which I would like to see, I should have capabilities to block the traffic upfront. I think these are the three areas where we should be focusing more, and we are in this journey already. The threat landscape has helped us to move in this journey. I think more to come on this space.
Fantastic. Chitty, you
we'll have a quick
I wanted to run a second poll. Yeah. Okay. Yeah. Go ahead.
Yeah, we'll have a second poll question. Yeah. Does your organization evaluates complete IT environment from cybersecurity standpoint on regular basis? We have options yes, no, and I'm not sure. We'll have 30 seconds for attendees to vote. Okay. We have the results. Yes, 71. No, I'm not sure.
Yeah, I guess I think the visibility, thanks to the cybersecurity, the cybersecurity awareness at the board levels. I think most organizations have embarked on some journey on cybersecurity. So I think that kind of reflects in the poll as well, Chitty.
Thank you. We'll continue with the discussion. Yep.
Thanks. So I think we're getting a lot of the good questions here. So I'll make sure that I answer all the questions, because I think the panelists for that, if it's okay, Ramu and Shiva. Right. Second question which we have got, I think from Anita here, is how far external audit, SOC, ISO, etc., which I presume is even in Shiva's thing is payment data security, PCI, benefits banking organization to enhance information security performance. So Shiva, you may be the right person to start, and then we can come to Ramu.
I think as I said, standards-based approach when it comes to security and risk management always helps. There are security standards like data security or even from a cyber security, there are standards which are built in. My only, I shouldn't say advice, my only suggestion to the group is how can we move away from a compliance checklist taking view of managing cybersecurity or risk management to making it as an actual differentiator for a business. I think that fundamental shift will bring in a lot of change when we talk about approach to security or compliance for that matter. Today, I don't know whether we can say all 100% we are there. No, I don't think so. There are a lot of organizations today manage this part more from a compliance checklist, regulatory submission point of view. How do we bring in that shift? How that's where I focus on today. I try to bridge that gap of moving away from a compliance checklist taking point of view to a narrative where we can actually show this as a differentiator, which can build trust into the end consumers who are using your products or services. That's where bank needs to build that narrative. I'm doing this from a compliance perspective. It should not be called saying it's a regulator who has asked for this, so I've got this tool. So it's from a compliance point of view. I run this report every week and I submit this report to A or B authority. I think that's from a process point of view, but if we can build a narrative which talks about if that activity helps me to build a consumer trust, if the consumer it's more like a loyalty factor, right? Today, loyalty is not about longevity with a particular brand or it's more moving towards convenience, right? If I'm convenient using this product or service, I'll probably stick onto it. But at the same time, the expense of convenience, if I know my data is not secure or if my data has been misused, I think I will think twice. Will I be loyal to that brand? I'm not sure if that is the case. How can we ensure that amount of trust with the consumer? Some of these processes around the security and compliance, if we can build a customer story into it rather than a checklist point of view, I think that will make the difference. If we can come out with ideas, suggestions on moving in that journey, I think that will go in the long run. That's what I feel.
Excellent. I think that makes a lot of sense, and that's one thing that being a forensic investigator ourselves, we one of the key things that we keep advocating and seconding that is it's through security at the end of the day, not checking the box. So Ramo, what are your thoughts, right? And how feasible is it to when we say this? Is it something from a implementation standpoint? One of the key things that we usually get is it's easy to preach but very difficult to follow, right? So what do you have to say for that? Yeah.
Fantastic. Probably I would approach a little different. When I'm writing a business plan for new bank, when I'm applying for a license, we put one specific category as modern TRM and cybersecurity approach for a digital bank. Because if you go look at the traditional way, as I said, banks are highly regulated. When I say highly regulated, talking about data accessibility, data residency, data protection, data privacy. We are highly regulated through PDPA in most of the Asian countries. So traditionally, it is about checking a checkbox to get your license and retaining your license. But if you flip side of it, which Shiva also added, a business sustainability and predictability. So I looked at technical risk management in FOSEC from that perspective. It starts from business. How inside out approach I can apply in a modern banking system to create a security framework which can be helping business sustainable and predictable for the neobank to grow from nothing to multi-billion-dollar company. Second, how to build that trust, because the biggest challenge for Tonic kind of companies, no physical branch. So traditionally banks are built by big buildings to differentiate. We are here physically, we are rich, your money is in safe hand. We have branches to show if you have a problem, come to me, here is I'm sitting. So this you have to be educating, to the customer and international stakeholder and the business owners to bring, if you are implementing cards, then talk about PCI should be standard as a proactive thing in your list of execution. It is not just for your compliance text box. If you are going to be your data sitting in multi-cloud, PDPA is a checkbox, but cyber security and data prevention is important. And that is where the customer trust building from inside out, where I have built it, I'm going to showcase, hey, I have not yearly one checkpoint. I have every 6 months I am doing audit. Every 3 months I am doing internal audit. Every 6 months I am doing external audit. Ensure every major product release I am doing an audit. Ensure starting from VAPT to PCI compliance, and ensure my internal audit system is automated well enough to identify the risk upfront. For that, these frameworks, it can be a PCA, it can be a PDPA, it can be a, any other cloud cybersecurity framework which allow the TRM function to work better. Today, everybody we are learning today. People can easily say, "Hey, Ramu, why don't you implement SUSE zero trust?" But a 20 plus technology and the 5 different departments need to be integrated with the process. The tool, the process, and technology need to be integrated, trained, and acceptance and adaptation. For a 50-year-old regulator, the compliance officer, for him, he give me a sign with everything working fine. Do you want to build that, or do you want to proactively build all the anomalies can be protected by the system with the kind of automated people, process, and tools with the evolving standard? Because rightly Shiva said, the threats are new. The environment what we are operating today is completely different than 5 years back. Today it's a more than human attack, bot attack. More than human hijack, it is a bot hijack. So we are in a different era, not in a traditional cybersecurity attack mode. So the framework and standards are highly recommendable to be automated and highly followable. So that is where, as a tonic goal also towards achieving zero trust framework, not just talking about PCI or VAPT or PDPA compliant, how to achieve really the nirvana state, how to aim that. That's one of the things which rightly Shiva mentioned, everybody we are aiming for, but that's a big journey we are driving through now.
Great. Thanks, Ram. Please go ahead, Shiva.
We should move away from an unavoidable necessity to an actual differentiator to business. I think that's how we should sum it.
You are right. You're right. It's
Thanks.
all in board
We'll
discussion now, or just CSO and IT security are. It is a board discussion now, and that's what happening nowadays. New TRM and cybersecurity is really sitting as a board discussion for all the new budget, new tools, new innovations. Yeah, thank you.
Great. We'll have final quick poll before we proceed with the discussion. Does your organization have formal cybersecurity governance plan? We have options. Yes, we have a program. We are in formulation phase. I'm not sure of this. No, we don't have, but need guidance to build. No, we don't have. We'll have 30 seconds to receive the poll. Yeah, we have the results. I think 50% probably in a phase where they don't have it yet.
Right. I think this may be a good start. If our purpose of the webinar would be served if for the rest of the 50%, if they can start with that process, I think that would be great.
Yeah.
Even for people who have a program, we also need to ask when was it last changed.
Right. Very well said.
Thank you. We'll move on.
Yeah. So we've got 9 more minutes on the clock. So just probably we've got lots of questions. I just want to make sure that we answer. So I think we can just take one last question. So got Mukesh here was asked, what are the few critical housekeeping out of many should financial institutions have in place to safeguard from a potential risk? So I'll just repeat for the benefit of Shiva and Ramu. What are the few critical housekeeping out of many should financial institutions have in place to safeguard them from, I guess, cybersecurity risks or something of that kind? So Shiva, you want to give maybe 1 point, and then we can go to Ram.
I'm not sure if we can name one thing saying this is what you need to do. It's a combination of things. As I said, the threat landscape is changing and the pace of change is also very fast. If I recommend something and say this is what you need to have to address this, probably 1 week down the lane, that might not help you. You need to keep track of what's happening around and try to build controls. It's an ongoing journey. I don't think we can answer in a straight way and say this is what you should have. Of course, basic stuff is to have prevention and detection capabilities. First is to have prevention capabilities, be it cybersecurity, be it risk management. What kind of prevention capabilities for known risks? We know some of the risks are existing in the businesses which we operate on, and we should have the prevention and detection. That's a must do. For the unknown stuff, we need to be nimble enough to put in controls, be it technology or be it process. So we should be, how nimble are we? The moment we identify a new threat, it should not stop your business to put controls in place, right? Business should run, and at the same time, we should be able to putting in controls. For that, we need to be nimble. So that's where some of these fintechs or new banks are very good at. They're very nimble and they're able to fast to move and put in controls in place. But traditional banks find it difficult because of the legacy from a technology infrastructure point of view, or from a people point of view, or even from a process point of view. I think, especially with the threat landscape changing at a faster pace, how nimble and how fast can we put in controls? I think that's where we need to move ahead.
And just to put that in perspective, it's like driving the car and repairing it at the same time. So that's what we are in. All right.
It's difficult for large institutions, traditional legacy, and probably fintechs I see are probably disrupting this space, and they're probably bringing in a lot of change. And they've also realized that, and they're trying to do a catch-up game there.
Ramu, your take?
That's where we see a lot of partnerships cropping up, where whatever gaps they're able to fill it through some of these partnerships. I think that's a way. I think we will move more and more in that journey.
No, Shiva rightly said, Darshan. So detect the attack in real time or near real time. That should be the objective. What technology you are bringing to a matter, try to do a prevention, or if you couldn't prevent, at least try to detect the attack in more real time. That means you need to try to reduce the dwell time. So most of the attacks today does not happen in over the night. The guy, try to easily find out your loophole, sit for a 30 to 60 days, and slowly steal your information or trying to attack. So whatever you hear today in the magazines or any known attack from our the ecosystem in the security side, very few over the night attack. It's all well planned, so this is where we need to start investing on how you detect the attack in the lowest possible dwell time, And if possible, those are integrated with the security orchestration on those detection. How quickly you can respond to it. Respond to that detection is very important. Today, those functions are almostly in silos in terms of manual security incident management or manual risk handling processes. Still, it is a compliance checkbox. Rather, if we engage a partner who can provide a SOC, who can have 24/7, 365 days monitoring, investigation, and incident responses. That is one of the quick things most of the banks or financial institution can do. For example, I did the similar working with SISA for doing some of the aspect too. I just want to say, emphasize today, it is all about how, not about how much you are spending, where you spend wisely. So most SOC today is not optional; it is mandatory element. So your institution need to spend for cloud native MTR solutions, or spending on threat hunting model developed by better forensic experience guys. That is where today we need to invest and fix this proactive uh, risk management and mitigation to protect the business.
Fantastic, Ramu. I think we are up on our time here.
Yeah.
So this is a fantastic session. Two very thought leaders in the industry. It's been a pleasure talking to both you, Ramu and Shiva. Thank you for your time. Back to you, Chiti, if you want to make some.
Yeah, thanks, Darshan. Yeah, thanks Shiva and Ramu for joining us and sharing your insights on this. I think attendees also would have got some useful insights. We had Shiva from Visa payment brand, typically enforces the standards, and then we have Ramu from banking. That too from digital banking. I think which is the future of banking. I think so we see all digital banking coming from every country. So we had both the views, one from the payment brand which enforces, and the bank which actually implements and practices it. And as a conclusion, if you need to pick a few keywords which probably people need to keep and move ahead, I think as Shiva said, threat landscape is evaluating, and important is the same three words which we usually tell people: process, technology, which is important. And then I think automation is going to play a very important role. I think the business should be aware of it in coming next 5 years on how to manage digital risk with this MLA and automation in place. Yeah, and with that, I think we had very interesting responses also for our whole sessions. But that last question is interesting. We see about 48% of the organizations either in the process of having some framework, or they don't have framework, which is kind of scary to see. Half of the organizations are not having it with the kind of threats we see now. So I think maybe this platform was useful for them to at least now they can start working on that and probably have the right frameworks in place to protect from the future threats of COVID and the post-COVID-19. Yeah, with that, I think, yeah.
Thank you, everyone. Thanks, Shiva. Thanks, Ramu. And thanks all the participants for joining us.
Yes.
Thank you. Have a good one.
Thank you.
Thank you, Darshan and Shiva.
Have a good evening. Thanks.